Read the list, it's a couple
Right,
pages.
it's true.
And to get them condensed is kind of a stressful situation.
Oh, yeah, that took some
I'm
time.
glad you had a fix on that.
Shall we wait on Michael a little bit, or what is everyone's thing?
I didn't hear anything from Michael, so I'm sure.
I think we just,
I think we
it's
should-
9:01, so.
And if he joins, I'll just note it, what time
Yeah.
he joins. If he joins via Zoom or shows
Okay.
up.
It's 9:01, and the January 13th meeting of the Historic Sites and Facilities Board will come to order. We have a roll call, please.
Reba Bechtel.
Here.
Lou Howard.
Here.
Margaret Smith.
Here.
Vice Chair Michael Davenport. Chair Phyllis Evans.
Public comment?
There's one online, so.
No one has signed up in person.
I'll give you. We get, there a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda. Second.
This is seconded. Any comments? Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We have the minutes from September 30th. I don't remember us even talking about some of that stuff. Okay. That's gonna be an issue with that only meeting quarterly to remember. So we have to trust that one of this.
I'll try to do good.
I know she gets a lot of, anyway. Now, comment, is there a motion?
I move to approve the minutes from September 30, 2025.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any other comments besides my inappropriately timed one? Those in favor, say aye. Aye. Yes, or whatever you want to say.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anyone have a conflict of interest with any matter on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, general updates, I think that's just something that's always gonna be here. We don't always have any. Do you have anything for us then, other than about the plan?
I don't think, so, not since last time. Is there anything that you have an update on, Amy?
The contract for the restoration of the powder house has been awarded to Spectrum, and they're expected to start work in the spring.
We probably should, as a general update, introduce our visitor.
Introduce what?
Our visitor.
Oh.
This is
The new
Guy Patterson. Guy started work on the 9th of December.
And he's still here.
And he's still here. And-
Desperate need of a patient. It's been a great month, and this is a fabulous town. The staff is great, the citizens are great, and the history is great, and for 50 some odd years, I drove by and periodically had a pizza or a cup of coffee or got gas.
Exactly.
So, but I've lived in Vail Valley for a long time, Colorado native, but have done a lot of worked a lot of places with a lot of history, historic designations, ordinances, grants. So,
And what's your position?
the assistant city administrator.
You spell that G-U-Y?
Yeah.
Patterson.
Yes,
with one or
comma
two T's? Yes, 2 T's. Okay.
Well, Michael, we got here just in time. We got through all the preliminaries.
And I noted your arrival time, yeah, and I'll note that in the minutes for roll call.
Okay.
9:05.
So we will move into the, it's called a work plan, but I think ultimately it's supposed to be a preservation plan.
Yes, yeah. And this,
well, some of the things that came in called it a work plan. Hope I don't have to bring this computer every time, it doesn't always want to go.
One that you carved out.
Thank you. So, at our last meeting, we decided that we wanted each of us to do cards. And clearly, we all kind of did them differently. And I don't think there's anything wrong in anything. But I do think eventually the plan formatting needs to be the same. Some of you use bullet points, some of you use numbers with parentheses, and others didn't use anything at all. A lot of good information here, but I'm not sure that it's all appropriate for preservation plan. Particularly since we've ended up with so much more information on some properties more than others. So I'm not sure of the best way to work through this. I guess just to take the properties in the order that they appear in our packet and see if there are any comments on what to leave in and maybe what to take out or what to add or whatever changes we might feel are appropriate. So we start with.
Can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
I was trying to figure out, there's a lot of redundancy, I mean, old information from 2019. At the beginning, I didn't know. So then there's 4 or so pages dated October 3rd from, and then there's everybody's individual input. So where are we starting?
Well, as I just said, we're starting with this page that looks like this. We're going through the properties.
Yeah, I think I just put in the original preservation plan and then my notes as kind of a context. So I think you want to start where it's at the Steep Canyon statute that was.
Just to go property by property. So I don't have numbers on the pages,
Page 16 of the
but
packet.
it looks like this.
Are you on page 16?
It starts with Steve Canyon.
Yep.
Yeah.
I grew up with Steve Canyon and I didn't know his name was Stevenson Button Canyon. Good research here. One thing that I see, Indiana Limestone donated the monument, and that is, it is made of Indiana limestone, but it was donated by Milt Kniff, the cartoonist who created the character. So. Which you have there. In the parentheses. So that wording needs to be switched around, I think, a little bit. Anyone else have any comments or questions? This would be for Lou, who did, this is her page. Yes?
I think she covered what we observed when we did our tour.
Interesting this about not power washing, because I'm sure that would have been everyone's first thought.
Yeah.
So good to know. And then the Jackson Monument. Yes, we do. Do you
I
want to
recall.
add
That's what I recall we saw when we visited as well. Did you find?
in the, just in the first paragraph of all these is meant to be a kind of history overview, that it was rededicated and the stanchions with the chain was done as part of the 2009 150th.
Is that, I mean, is that somewhere required? I mean, it's like every order to put in the history of it. I mean,
That's what we said we wanted in the first paragraph, just a brief history of the property. You think that's not,
so it, well, I mean, it wouldn't change from when,
no, it wouldn't,
so,
unless something, well, like with the powder house. Right now, we can't say that it's been rehabbed, but by the time we redo this plan, whenever that is, we will be able to say that it was redone in,
right, that's the current
2025.
condition
Right.
or what's coming up. But I meant, as far as talking about the history of the site, like the information about the statue and all of that, I'm just asking, needs to be in the verbiage.
It seems very worthwhile, particularly for other people who might read this, to know this is why it's on the list.
we don't want a long multi-paragraph thing, but just to give a sense of why this, whatever property is important, as Michael said.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, so I would like to see added to the beginning of the Jackson Monument, the fact that it was refurbished and rededicated as part of the 2009 150th Gold Rush celebration. The cemetery, which was like a no-brainer for you to do. I would not presume to correct you on anything, even if I thought it was wrong.
There's all sorts of deals out there.
Well, I know that, Lou obviously has a vast store of knowledge about this. There was a question, what was it, between the date of the first burial, something you emailed me about? That she had found one date and someone else had another date, and decided to go with what she.
This was, we're redoing the, walking tour at the Historical Society. And this was in the walking tour, so I'm thinking Chief, you probably put that in there, so. Going with you, Chief. And you know, I mean, it's good to have it right, but
Yeah.
who knows?
I have a question. I put in here, since you sent it over, the cemetery plans for 2025. That probably doesn't have to be in the final preservation plan, which is the following
Oh, no,
page. I just figured
because I
I'd put
wanted
it in
that.
so that.
Well, like I said, there's a lot of good information that isn't necessarily appropriate to be in the plan.
Right,
But
No,
it's-
I just got that ready because everybody wanted to know what plans were. So I just put it in
You didn't say something.
Well, as you mentioned, what I did with mine when we get to it is I tried to follow the format, and then anything that was additional, I just called it supplemental, meaning it wasn't intended to be part of the plan, but it'd be good just to get down on paper.
That's what I meant. I say there's a lot of good information, good to have, and maybe good to just transcribe into a single document
right.
that's separate from the plan, that we would all have a copy of, be available to council if they wanted it, that sort of,
Well, that's a good idea. Put together like a supplemental
Yes.
information booklet.
but not make it. I think it's just for anyone that's interested. So does anyone have any other comments or questions about the cemetery? Section. Good job, Ruth. How's that? And there's all of her pictures. Then, City Hall. This first page with a little picture up here. That looked pretty much to me like that's pretty much the first paragraph came from the old plan, is that? Or did you rewrite that?
I think it largely came from it. There was some additional information in some of the documents I was sent that I added to it, but I think it's mostly from the old plan.
I'm not sure we need to list the source from 2017. I think that information actually was on the brass plaque, I saw it. Anyway. Current condition. Has the exterior been completed?
It has, we had our final walkthrough a few weeks ago, and that's.
So this was correct when you were writing it.
Yeah.
But I think we can say that the exterior facade work was completed in 2020. Did you say you did it in
It was a few weeks ago.
2024?
2020, yeah.
I'm not. I don't know. Those first two about the exterior facade and the renovation of the restroom, is that a current condition or is that a statement of fact? I don't know.
It was a statement of fact.
So should it be listed under current condition? And I don't know where else we put it. If we put it there.
It was more or less to just note the fact that something has been done that had been planned. It doesn't need to be in here. I was just thinking, it's always good to find some place it's easy to find where we record things that have happened.
No. The city pulled building permits on these projects, Amy?
Yep.
Let's see. So there is a record. Maybe going back up to that first paragraph, the last sentence, in 2025, the city began a series of, not or, rehabilitation projects. Most recently completed in 2024. To reference it there.
That's true, yeah, but it's like.
And then the current condition, the last 5 bullet points. Makes sense. It seems, to my recollection, that's what we observed on our tour. Work required, there is damage to the curb that's been there a long time. I don't think that's, I'm not sure that falls under.
Minor Street.
That's the minor street rehabilitation, I believe. If actually, or will be a part of it. Let's leave out the timing stuff for right now. I think this, with all of us working on it and not having it all centralized. There's some money budgeted this year. I think it's generically listed as sites and facilities projects or something like that. There's a term like that in the budget. So what is that?
Ice machine.
Okay, thank you.
I think, Andy, you told me there's $100,000. I'm sorry, I'm thinking about the powder house. There's $100,000 in the budget and half of that's going to the powder house.
About half, yeah, that's right.
So to say that the budget includes funds, I'm not sure we can know that for sure.
I think it's in the budget. We don't know whether or not it actually gets spent.
Well, we don't know if it's gonna be spent on this or on another of the properties too.
Um,
What I read when I looked at the budget, there was a rather generic listing without saying specifically, this is for the train, this is for the powerhouse, whatever. It was just because I think at the time you had to get the budget together, we hadn't met. You didn't know exactly what was gonna be borrowed. That was my sense, my guess when I read it.
But Andy, is there any budget item for interior work to City Hall for this year,
Yes,
specifically as a, for that project?
yes, that's a separate one.
But that's the remodeling.
Interior.
Right, so that would be this first bullet point under wing, and then would be
Well-
specific to upper level interior work to like chambers and that office area.
I don't know, I think we all maybe had a different view of how this would all look. In the previous plan, I think with every property, there was a win. And that's why I put it on that worksheet. But maybe in this time, we need to make something more like a spreadsheet. To have as a separate page in the plan.
For which, by year?
Properties, year. Something like that, at least to say what year it'll be in. We can't anticipate what will agree to be budgeted, nor will we know what bids in some cases will be. So we can't
Grants
have
or whatever.
dollar, but say this will be done in 2025, and this can wait till 2027, and so on. So that's what I'm getting at. I think as we move through these properties for now, let's move past the win section.
Well, and if it would be helpful, and we can talk about this later, kind of division of work, I'd be happy to put together that spreadsheet based on.
And can do. Have that discussion.
Sure, but you know, it's helpful to have that sort of thing in there for whoever does, you know, once we do start talking about the win.
And then the next page is, Michael, excuse me, was saying is some supplemental information, which is very good and very informative and helpful. I love the picture of the spare piece of plywood with the traffic cone in front of it. That was well planned. Okay. The Carnegie Library. Anyone have any comments or questions? I did this page and I'm pretty knowledgeable about the library, given my past involvement.
And I think you covered what we saw when we did our tour.
But as I was writing this, we saw the one place where there had been a hole that wasn't correctly patched. And we know about the one place where there was the ice damage under the gutter. But while you have the professional there, they should really check the entire building, just if there's anything else that needs a little repointing.
Isn't that continuing to grow the interior, damage?
I don't know, unless more liquid water got in under that wallpaper. I don't see how it could. Unless someone tried to fix it and botched it. And I don't think that has happened. As I recall that day, we talked about who was responsible for the interior. And it was kind of mixed because technically the library is supposed to take care of the inside, except in this case, we know it was caused by something on the outside. Has there been any further discussion or decision about what's going to be done or who's going to pay to do it?
I think once it's clear that there's no further water damage, I think the interior will get repaired as part of that water.
So you think the city will? I think,
I haven't heard anything from the library about whether it's expanded or anything. I've been in
I
a couple of times.
I don't know, unless somebody went out and touched it, that could make it get worse. But unless more water leaked in, I don't see how it could.
Right.
Physics is.
Right. I guess the only way would be if there's already water kind of stuck inside that over time continue to percolate, but that wouldn't be new water unless it wasn't patched properly.
Well, then, under
When
work-
was it patched originally?
That was in,
Was it
it was in the fall, it was after,
this past fall?
yes.
That's all, okay, so we haven't gone through another winter yet. This is.
No, this would be the first winter.
Okay.
So that's, I think we weren't going, our plan wasn't to, as a city, wasn't to do anything with the interior until after the winter to make sure.
Well, it's gonna be spring before you have any more melting, potential leakage, which would make the bubble get bigger.
So I think at this point, we're still kind of in a holding pattern, monitor it, but
So under work required, we should probably add in that part about parent repointing the brook below the gutter. Maybe after that, a sentence about the water related damage to the interior wall should also be repaired or something to that effect. And the Arastra, it's just a block of stone sitting there. Not too much to say about that. And so this maintenance is removing leaves and other debris, and I'm not even sure that falls under the category of maintenance. But it's the only thing that might be done to it. Okay, moving past the winds, then the next page, which is Veterans Memorial. We all saw the melted patch on the artificial grass. The flags were a clever idea. I don't think they're a good permanent idea. But I think at least they're gonna need to be replaced because they're already fading, and by the time you get through winter, when the southern sun is even more intense, come spring, something has to be done there. You have to put wings, sort of what they talked about, on physically attached to the memorial to create that same shade, or you gotta buy new flags.
There was a suggestion about maybe a different type of glass that maybe wouldn't reflect the sun. I don't know. So that might be something we could look into.
Non-glare glass.
Better, you know,
Which might
permanent
make it
solution.
when, at the right time of day and the right time of year, if you're standing there and you're trying to read some of the names, you can't because of the glare off the glass, so maybe non-glare glass would be, something has to be done in any event, because those flags are gonna look really sad by the come spring. The cannon. I said it that day, it's written here. But I want to stress again, that is not the original cannon that was donated. It is a replica.
It's not the original one that was donated?
Correct. It's the original barrel when they rebuilt the carriage. And then they put the old barrel back on. The old one had big tall wheels. Little 3 or 4 feet high. It was cool to look at, but kids love to climb on it.
Well, the original was a replica as well, correct?
No, I don't believe so. I wasn't there. And I can't find it.
Well, I mean, it says that, it's a little confusing then.
What's confusing?
Well, the first sentence, this cannon is a Civil War era replica, the original cannon,
This cannon, not the original cannon.
yeah. But, okay, so the original was,
As far as we know, it would have by then been a very old one, 40 years after the Civil War. No, but we did have we did a lot of this, looking this stuff up when we were working on the library, and there is a photograph of two soldiers of the Grand Army of the Republic, which allegedly was taken the day or at the time of its dedication or whatever. And it was notable that the taller of the two soldiers was a man of color. That was kind of cool. I think I got correct, the condition. From the street, you don't see those little bubbles in the paint, but up close, we all did.
In some places, cannons like this are symbolically pointed at other places. Is that the case here?
Not that I'm aware of.
It's pointing at Tommy Knocker, so unless the
Well,
library.
when it was- Before that building was the bus station. What is now Tommy Knockers at one time was the bus station. Who knows?
It's probably just because they didn't wanna wing it at the.
I think it was just because it was on the corner.
I've seen like municipal buildings pointing it at the county building and stuff like that.
They don't have that option since we're not the county seat anymore.
Mhm.
There you go, okay.
Well, it points generally towards Denver, I guess, right? So-
Pointing at the state capitol.
No, I think it was just because that was the corner and there used to be originally, back at about the time of that donation, it was one of those metal fences. They're kind of short and they have the looping metal on it. And that's what went around the perimeter of the property. So I don't. Okay. Central Hose House, the hose house is by Reba. I think we need to add a little background information on all three of these. That the condition and the work required. Anyone have any comments or questions?
The look required looks accurate based on what
Is
we're
it in
talking
fact
about.
budgeted for 2025?
Is what,
Is it budgeted? Is it in this year's budget?
is what budget?
Central Hose House.
Yes.
So that's a win. We don't have to worry. I think, now that I look at this again, perhaps what has been called current condition is in fact the history.
I think that's,
Yeah. And the current condition would kind of be similar to what's under work required. So then to hose house number 2,
the same thing there. With, current being the history. Mhm.
this is a bit of an aside, but that day we were on the tour, I asked you about given the city's regulations on lot size, could that lot be subdivided? Do you know, or did you keep?
Well, it's too small to be subdivided under the current minimum lot size for the district, but so we did have to rezone it or go through some other process to actually subdivide it.
Just wondering about the potential use of the back.
Right. Yeah, we had talked about whether we could potentially, fit like a housing unit even back there. And
You keep a lot of tiny houses.
Right, at the moment, there's a requirement in this district that the minimum housing size is like 800 square feet or thereabouts, which doesn't really work on that site, but,
Now, that's why we have a variance.
right. Yeah, and as an aside, even further aside, I think over time, we will be working on housing codes to open up more flexibility, but, and then this group would certainly have more to say on smaller houses.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions or comments about proposed house number 2? Then going on to the Brian.
There were actually four things.
And so
There were actually four those houses.
we were originally,
Yeah.
the one was down around where this building used to be. It's like in that general area.
That fourth one was just lost to time, or was it redeveloped in some way?
I think we lost to. Maybe it was a firehouse, maybe it burned. I don't know.
That's an indictment on the fire authority if they can't keep their own.
Well, it was way pre-authority.
Sure.
Um, Anyone have any other comment? Guy, is this making sense to you, what we're trying to do?
It is, and I'm looking up stuff on Google Earth as you guys are talking about it. I haven't toured the whole place
here?
yet,
Jump right in if you find anything.
but no, I'm kind of like.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's.
That's right, and then the Powder House.
My question on this one is, since it's currently under or renovation rehabilitation at this time, how does the board want to handle like the preservation plan on this item? Because it seems like there's a lot of changes that are being addressed. As we
Without our
speak.
input, yeah. I would think it would be maybe appropriate to say, restoration is beginning in 2025 and let it go with that.
Sure,
Is that,
but maintain the,
I mean, it's correct, but is it adequate? What do you think?
No, I think that'd be fine. These conditions were as of, December,
Right,
when I looked at it, so. Until the work is actually done, it's not done.
right, but it has begun, so,
It has been,
well, it has begun, they've left the bid, they just can't do the work. You said it's Spectrum,
Spectrum,
so it'll be well done.
folks who did the exterior rehab.
And the
West End
library,
Rose House.
and the hotel.
see, the wording could be changed to say the following are the major elements to be addressed.
Well, the bid's been let.
Andy, do you have what's the time, do you know off the top of your head? I can't remember the time frame when it'll be presumably finished, or what the planned finish date is.
It's not completely clear when they'll start. It'll be in the spring sometime. We don't have a date certain yet, but it'll be fairly quick after that. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a couple months.
Right, so probably by the end of summer,
Yes.
we'll have the most house.
You know, we can always do an addendum if there's a significant change
Sure,
on any of the properties. You know, if, let's say this is a 5-year plan we're putting together, 3 or 5 year, whatever it is. But something major happens on one of them. We can always issue an addendum and get council's approval. So
Sure.
maybe that would be a way to consider going with this particular building.
Yeah, either way, yeah, that's fine.
I gather that you talked with Andy or someone from the city to find,
I checked with Amy about the budget, in December. In December, I called Andy and asked him about the budget.
So in your, under when, which I know we're not gonna get into, but I'm just curious about this. You said that the manual specifications and drawings include a park,
The drawings actually show the park and they have details.
and you
Of
knew
the
that
park.
from HPRC, correct?
Yes, from the drawings that they got the COA,
Yes.
showed that information on the drawings.
But I presume then that the park is not part of the bid.
Correct.
It was just the building, regardless of what was in the plans.
Correct.
Okay.
It's just the future plans.
So the city has spent the money to get the plants fully done, it's just they're not gonna build the park now.
Well, we all agreed the day of our tour, which you weren't with, that let's wait and see. 'Cause I'm not convinced that spot is gonna draw that much traffic to justify a park. And we all seem to think that, so that's why I was asking. And then again, the supplemental information. The water wheel.
I didn't include the history on it. Cause that's, that to me, it wasn't changing, so.
No, it wouldn't.
I don't,
It's,
I
it's
don't know much, I guess I'd have to do some research on it.
well, what exists, you're right, it hasn't changed much. I think it's had a complete revamp since then. That happened a few years back, but I don't remember if it was before or after the adoption of the plan. No whispering at that end. Just saying.
Yes, ma'am.
So it sounds like we could potentially just add the previous history with potentially that addendum if it was revamped, and we can help to look up.
It was,
Figure
yeah,
out
I
when
know
it
it was
was
done, I
done.
just don't know the timing versus when the plan was written and adopted. And I would like to have a picture without the pumpkin on it. I know that's what we
Oh,
saw the
yeah.
day we were there.
Yeah, yeah.
But there are tons
I
of
agree.
good pictures.
Oh,
of
well,
this.
these are what I took.
Yes,
That's fine. And I wanted to check that the Taylor is Tayler for
correct.
sure.
It is for sure.
Okay. All right. You said that there's some obvious repairs that need to be done. Or repairs, but I don't know that we identified exactly what it was, or
We couldn't know.
we couldn't,
We
right,
talked
right.
about getting in touch with Scott Wallace, who has worked on it, who in fact did this last revamp that I can't remember the timing of.
So did talk about the fact that it's mostly wood and should have a maintenance schedule to be followed and better, and additional signage. I took pictures of where I thought that some of the issues were that and close up. So,
This last revamp, I know they took it almost completely apart. It was a major summer,
For the gears to make it turn.
yeah. Because they had to get in, they had to remove a lot of the wood and able to access. Because it was jerking and it wouldn't turn at all. It was very traumatic for fans of the water wheels.
for what?
It was traumatic for the fans of the
Oh,
water
yeah.
wheel.
So it sounds like maybe something to add is to hire out someone like Scott or another similar contractor to do an inspection to kind of determine specifically what's needed.
Scott, if he's still available.
Right, at the tour, someone had mentioned that he was moving west, right?
That's what we.
Well, who's Scott?
Scott Wallace lives here in town. He's done most of the work on the water wheel in recent years. He built those mining structures that are at the visitor center on the south side that you drive right past on Minor Street. He built those, and then when the roundabout was created, he built the mining structure that sits out in the middle of that.
So you're suggesting it's that we have an independent person evaluate what needs to be done there?
I
Rather
think someone
than,
who knows a bit more about it and has a bit more time and expertise
right,
than anyone on the city crew.
Yeah, I don't know that, I mean, Public Works does a good job keeping things, keeping it together and all that, but if we truly want to do a full rehabilitation, it probably warrants it to get an expert
Well,
on the
I think it
subject.
needs to be looked at to know if we need a full rehabilitation.
Right,
I know that it needs waterproofing and staining every year.
Mhm.
That's a given, but beyond that,
so how do we initiate this?
well, we don't initiate it, but we put it in the plan that it needs to be initiated.
Yeah,
And we let
that
staff
was-
do it.
I think that's my initial recommendation is that maybe we add that in to say that that would be a kind of high priority item to get someone out to actually do that assessment. And then-
Yes.
Okay, so are you gonna add that in? Or,
When we get it all, you're not gonna have to rewrite it.
well, just, okay.
It will be put in. And in the next page is the Blue Ribbon Tunnel. There's so much to be said. I think you did a fine job. There is a bit of history, which I think, again, has not changed. And I'm guessing that's why you didn't put it here. But I know there is some kind of a brief description. And as we said, the only thing to do is put up sign.
Which one, it would make sense to do all the signage, well, maybe not possible. At least like say all the signage on the walkway. And
Yeah.
starting here at the city hall,
As we talked about, yeah.
yeah, that'd
And,
be nice, so that,
and for me, all matching
Yeah.
instead of all the different kind of signs
Right.
that are all over.
I think that'd be good.
And maybe something enough different that it stands out as this is one of our historic sites.
Mhm.
But that's the general overall. And finally, the coach and the engine.
There, that's the most up-to-date information from, last week of December, so as far as what the status was, I was trying to get a picture. Haven't gotten that yet, but, it's, when I toured it in October, it was, what had been done to that point was just awesome, and, the details, I was just amazed at, so, you know, the work that they put in and the detail, attention to detail is very notable. And so, I've got here the status, as far as what's been completed and being worked. It looks like the windows and the window shades are gonna be like the last. I understand that they're, work required would be to finish that. I guess I didn't say that here, to finish the things that are still outstanding. But the thrust, the important part I took away from this, and I don't know the status, is that they're gonna order or have ordered a custom canvas cover. So do you or any of you, either of you know if that's been done?
I don't think it's been done yet. I know it's still planned.
I have a question, based on how you have this wording, it sounds as if that custom cover will be up at the loop.
Yes, it'll stay there until we have our, which is the whole other part of this, get the cover here. So that's the intention, that, you know, it'll be, because they're gonna take it out of the, I called it the garage or
Yeah.
whatever.
They need the space.
Yeah, they need space, take it out and they need, so that's where the canvas cover comes in. I'm, you know, detached, I mean, I'm not part, I don't know what part of our job is to, about the, permanent structure out here to cover it. So, you know,
It's very much part of our. Although council has already looked at
well, that's
plans,
what I mean,
but
there's
they
already.
decided not to make a decision
Right.
at night
Right,
because, partly because of money.
it's a huge cost, so maybe look at some other options for what type of structure it is.
I read here, and I assume, Margaret, that this is based on the research you did, recommend that the cover be made of metal rather than wood. And I couldn't remember which it was. I remember council talking about both. Which way?
Well, if we really landed on that, I recall, I think materials were a big part of the cost, and maybe if there's an alternative material that would be considered.
Yeah, the plans that were presented to council were metal. And even the cheaper metal option came in at something like $1 million. And that it didn't include some of the site work.
So, Margaret, it is recommended that the cover be made of metal rather than wood. Who's recommending that? You or the loop? Who likes to tell us what to do with our approach?
Well, no, I put that in there based on our discussions in our last meeting,
Okay,
where we said it should be probably something that would be less maintenance requirement, you know. Metal, I mean, and I'm not familiar with what materials are also available that might be some sort of composite that has the strength. Well, we talked, you know, like wood, what do you call it, recycled materials. I don't know, there might be something out there, I'm not up on that. That could be, I think the key was to have it be a low maintenance, but functionally, structurally do the job. So,
yeah, but it also has to handle snow load.
well, yeah, that's right, structurally, that's what it, so. As far as how much, you know, like even looking at those plans, I mean, I don't know whether that's appropriate for us or not, I need to
It
know.
is.
I think, yeah, because I think
It absolutely is.
once we get through and create the preservation plan, then anytime there's proposed work on a historic center facility, we want to take it here first.
Yes, and I would hope it would come here even if the plan wasn't done yet,
Right,
um,
just to say, hey, this is about to be worked
to
on.
get our input.
Well, yeah, and, you know, I guess it's a little bit, I don't know where it's been established or if it's been established as far as exactly, I said that they were gonna be relocated slightly north and east, northeast towards Minor for, you know, attract visitors and in what kind of decking and all that, that it's been, if any of that has been approved as for a design of what they want on that, I'm not sure, but anyhow,
Yeah, I think at this stage, everything was conceptual design, and so before anything were to get taken back to council, I think instead the next step would be.
It should be us, and then I would think it would be HPRC. Would have to approve,
It would need a COA, yes.
Right,
but I would think it should come to us first. And perhaps in that case, per the ordinance, we would be the applicant.
right.
On behalf of the city, yeah.
and then there's been no discussion that I know of as far as the engine, the asbestos abatement, they said needs to be done here before it goes there. It wouldn't be done there.
Right.
Maybe that's not news, but put that in there. So I don't know what plan there is, what timeframes we're talking about getting that started or getting quotes.
I think we always, let's get the coach back first.
On a side point, a couple of years ago, Arvado was about to create a cover for the streetcar they have. They have the last remaining streetcar in the Denver area. And in case they've done any research in terms of what kind of shelter or cover materials are available.
Yeah,
Well, being what we've spent, I don't know what it's cost to restore the coach. But it seems like we're still floundering on getting priority on getting this done. Doesn't sound to me on getting the design approved and moving forward.
Well,
So, I mean, are we not making it a priority or not? I mean.
Sure, well, the last time, after I went to council, council said, metal structure is so expensive. Is there a cheaper alternative? My understanding is that the architects were working on an alternative design, but I haven't heard anything on that in quite a while,
Well, do
so.
we need to push that? I mean, they're working on it.
I think we would first come to the conclusion that that's the most important one of all the projects.
That's what I
And
guess I'm
And I
suggesting.
don't know that we might all agree or not, because work is moving forward on the powerhouse before that. And admittedly, the powerhouse is far less expensive, but, that rushed right along. And now it's understandably delayed due to weather through the winter, but, is only.
Well, what's needed? I guess I'm not clear. I'm not hearing from you guys. What is needed? What's the next step?
For the structure,
Yeah,
Plans that are affordable, or that the council deems affordable.
I guess the first question is to ask the architect, what's the status of them looking into it?
so who manages that?
Staff,
Who?
staff.
I can follow.
What I recall from that night was Tim Kane, one of the architects, saying, what do we do now? And not being given any direction. Pretty much, we'll get back to you. Kind of a vague response. But that was my recollection from the back road.
I think the
So
next step would be to look at alternative materials. Shelter,
Yeah, that's what
alternative,
I think we need.
we've got the design and now I just need to look at,
Well, a change in materials
that's a big driver
could
of the
result
cost.
in some minor changes in the design.
I think we said that though back when we met at the end of September.
Well, things can only move so fast, there's only so much money. If council won't agree to spend the
No, I'm
money, it
just-
doesn't mean doesn't matter.
well, and the other thing is, we likely, as a city, will have to apply for grants of some kind for it, because even if it's cut in half the cost and it's $500,000, that's still outside the city's likely budget for a project. And so the time frame is probably longer than anyone's wanted it to be. But I do think another thing that's important is if we, as the next step of this process, put together that spreadsheet with priorities and timelines. If that's one of the top items, then that's something that we kind of address more quickly.
See,
So Guy, is that part of your, are you the grant writer now?
We'll be playing a big role in it. I think we've kind of divvied them up, kind of based where they're coming out of, and I think Maria and I are gonna be.
who?
Maria, your best and brightest, fellowship.
The thing about things that have to be funded by grants, first of all, most grants are not just, send it in whenever you want. They have specific
Time frame.
dates, or maybe 2 a year. And then you wait to hear if you got it. So you put it in your budget, being optimistic. And if you get it, great. But if you don't, you're off another year. So we can think it's a priority, but if the funders don't see fit to give us what we applied for, it's all kind of beside the point.
And most large grants require some kind of matching fund.
Okay.
It could be like 30%, doesn't have to be 50%, but that's another thing is there'd still have to be another source of money besides a
And that-
particular grant.
Often that comes out of the budget, though. There are situations where you can apply for more than one grant, and use this grant as your match for that grant and leverage all that, and that gets very complicated, and that's Guy's job.
Well, but that said, the work that you guys are doing here, the pre-planning and getting it nailed down to what you really want to get done helps in grants. It shows that you've put it through citizens' thoughts, that it's been reviewed, agreed upon. And it's a lot easier than staff saying, hey, this is a great idea, let's apply for a grant, and you have no backing document, so.
This will help. This. That
But
this,
again, there's no guarantee with grant money.
unfortunately. There used to be, pretty much, but not so much anymore. And one other thing, the first thing people think of is the State Historic Fund. And they are kind of loath to, they're not gonna give you like 2 grants for Idaho Springs in the same grant cycle. No matter how well the application is written. So there's some form of political fiddling around that happens with these things. If you go to a private foundation, it's a little different. But understand that we can say it's a top priority, but until we can God can get us the money, even if the match, as Michael mentioned, comes out of the budget.
Well, the first thing would be to get an approved plan or approved, you know, what am I trying to say? Get that finalized as far as materials and everything's, and then that way, because right now there's too many unknowns, it seems.
Well, I think a lot of this will become more clear when we get past what we've just done with the wording and do that spreadsheet I was talking about, because it may or may not be the top priority based on everyone's decisions. So.
Have we ever thought about going out to local residents that have a lot of, that may have experience in doing things that would, I'm talking about some of the other maintenance items we've talked about, to like say, have them volunteer to do some of the work, you know, if they've got the skills, you know.
Well, Scott Wallace lives in town, grew up here, but it's his business. He's not gonna, he doesn't volunteer. I think he might on some,
Well, I
in some
mean-
situations, give the town a break. He's that kind of guy.
Well, I was kind of thinking, or I was thinking like something along the lines of some of these other items. They're fairly simple. Like even the doors at the library. You know, we have craftsmen in town that maybe we just could reach out, have them saying, you know, in other words, not make it a major thing, a project that has to be budgeted and all that. I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, I think it's a good point in some, like the Jackson Memorial and the Erasmus things, those could be great school projects too. You know, something like that to say, well, we know it needs to be weeded routinely and some minor maintenance stuff. Let's have the elementary school kids do it as part of some outdoor project or something. So I think that's a great idea.
I think it's a great idea. I don't have a lot of confidence it could work. But it is a great idea. And you mentioned specifically the doors. It was a professional that put the finish on there that started fading away
I know.
the first year. So I would be a little hesitant to have, I want someone who has done work on that kind of wood that faces south,
Right,
that has
right,
no cover.
absolutely.
And that's a combination of experience. I'm not sure you'd find that. I'm pretty confident we'd find people in town that would claim to have it. But whether they
But
would
if it
be,
gets done, it gets done, you know, it's just,
but if it gets done poorly,
well, yeah,
that's counterproductive too.
I'm just saying, you know, letting people know, hey, we need this done. I don't, it would have to be done. But anyhow, okay.
But I think the idea is great. And if any of us know of anyone, maybe you get a new neighbor, somebody moves next door. I think there's nothing wrong with looking at it, but I think we would be misleading ourselves if we relied on that. But I think, yeah, it would be great.
One of the towns I worked in, we reached out to the Boy Scouts to do very small projects. So they kind of cleaned up like an old cabin that was near a cemetery. And it's something they did for their, one, you know, for an Eagle Scout or Imagine, but they would come in and it required a lot of hands, but it was very simple. It was just something that they could do on a Saturday, but it, you know, knocked out something that the public works staff didn't have time to do or the interest to do or nobody else could do.
I've used the Boy Scouts a lot.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, the Boy Scouts have worked a lot at the cemetery. They've gotten, I think, 3 different ones got the Eagle project.
We had I don't know if does rites of passage still exist?
Yes, but I don't think they call it that anymore, but I've used those
Mountain
boys
Reason
too.
Network?
No,
Okay.
this is up where 103 is.
Yeah, I've used them.
Almost a halfway house for young men.
Yeah, the Mountain Youth Network, I think, is the name.
Well, or
Oh,
it could
wow.
be the Q House.
The Q house.
Q House is what, yeah.
But anyway, there used to be a group of young men. And it had a great deal to do with who was in charge of them. Troy had it. And I don't know if that's still an
Oh,
option now, but your
My
point.
sister was involved with that. Up the hill, like troubled children,
Yes.
okay, yeah.
Troy Erickson was in charge.
And he
That's
was the
what I
one
used to
that
do.
pushed them to do it, whether the current management would be as amenable, I have no idea. But your point is well taken, and we have used them before, and hopefully we'll have the sense to continue using them when it's an appropriate project and when they're available.
Right. And also the high school, don't they have some requirement for community
Service
service?
hours. Yeah, they have to, I think it's 10 hours a year, so I use them at the cemetery. I know all
That's
those.
good.
Don't, don't say that you're willing to volunteer, because she will use you. She's very good at using people, that's how she gets so much done.
There are groups that will come out and they will do a lot of these different things. They're just, like when she's talking about the door, to me, that's something that needs to be done every year because we can't get rid of the sun. So you just have to figure out how to do it every year. And
I'm just trying to think of ways to knock some of this stuff off that would be good.
Well, having gone through all the descriptions with some minor changes, I already mentioned that I would think it easier managed with some kind of spreadsheet. Just years and properties.
it's just easier to look at and actually see
To remember,
where
I mean,
you're at.
when it comes
Instead of going
to
through every
budgeting,
page.
exactly, when it comes to budgeting time, oh, I'm doing the budget for 2026, what's up for that year? Kind of, I think that would be helpful to staff in budget preparation as well. I would also, somewhere in this, I believe, and please feel free to disagree or agree. The key to all of this is maintenance. It has to be done, not when Public Works feels like it or thinks they have enough time. It has to be mandatory. And that needs to be stressed in this document. And I don't know, so how to go about doing that rather than just repeating it on every property.
There should be a
Is
schedule,
there,
like,
no, I'm hesitant to schedule a city department. But
but then
because I
they know
think
what
they
they
should be
gotta
res-
do.
they should be responsible enough to schedule themselves and they should be made to do it. So I'm wondering about some kind of after we've listed all the properties, some sort of a general. What do you grin at?
Nothing, nothing at all.
Some sort of a general comments that apply to all the properties and stress in a strongly but politely worded paragraph, how imperative it is that regular maintenance be done. I mean, we've always had, in addition to whatever else we had in the budget since this group started, even in its former incarnation, we've always had a line in the budget that was just miscellaneous repairs on any of the historic properties, which could have covered buying finish for this deck out here that is splintering because it's been ignored. But there was no incentive. They've always got 5,000 other things to do, and I know that's true. They do have 5,000 other things to do.
Would the next step for us be, here we have things that are mostly things that need to be fixed. Would the next step be to actually come up with a maintenance list? In other words, we're talking about things like painting, caulking, whatever, and for each of the sites.
So that was kind of what the work that needs to be done was. So
Okay.
we have sort of done that. Are you talking about combining it into a single document?
Yeah, in other words, having an annual maintenance list, as opposed to an annual, a list of things that need to be fixed.
Because I'm not following it, because I thought we sort of had that.
Well, I think there's sort of a difference between like if you need to be painting something annually, that's different than say repairing a door. I mean,
But they're both in there, so
right.
again,
More to distinguish the fact that it's a maintenance item which requires,
City staff item, you mean?
Yeah,
as
it's sort of
opposed
a
to
different-
contractor?
yeah, it's a different person doing it as opposed to getting an architect and an engineer and a general contractor, just calling out the specific things that are maintenance items.
For the city staff.
Yeah.
well, maybe that's part of this supplemental area at the back.
Mhm.
There would be one that would stress the importance of maintenance and then
List them, the items that are
like
maintenance.
a descriptive paragraph and then the list.
Mhm.
These require annual maintenance.
Well, some items I would think, some things might not, some things might definitely be yearly, but then some other things might be,
But they-
less than that.
Every one of them needs an annual inspection to know if it needs. I mean, you shouldn't have to, whatever's done on this deck out here, and ultimately on a deck around the train. You shouldn't have to redo that every year, but you should
Look at it.
take a look at
Take
it
it, yeah.
and make a note of what you found. Because maybe you'll find one spot, I don't know. If we had a particularly rough
Stitch
winter.
in time saves none.
So that's how I would kind of see laying this out. Each of the properties, current condition, work needed. History, current condition, work needed. Along with the picture. Did you get out to take the additional picture?
Some of them.
Well, I think a lot of the pictures we have were adequate. And then the time frame, and then this appendix, so to speak. And then a totally separate document of this, all this good information that's that we put together that are not appropriate to be in the plan. Is that, am I making myself clear, or am I just babbling? Because I feel like I'm babbling.
No.
Don't laugh.
I have them all the time. I have the same question when I wake up.
Okay. We're gonna get along just
It's gonna be
fine.
great. We don't have any idea what the other person said. That's good.
One other thing is that, like, for example, on my two properties, I took additional photos and I'm wondering, is there some sort of central place or just give them to staff? So there's sort of a photo history where there are more pictures, like, for example, the Powder House, I probably took 20 pictures of it.
Well, and those are all gonna be outdated.
Yes, although it's a good record of the history of the building.
I'll take any photos if you wanna send them my direction, cause I do like slideshows and stuff, so I do have a lot of photos electronically. For historic stuff, that's quite fun, so I could use that in a couple of different ways, and I'm also happy to store them.
Okay.
For historic purposes, you just,
Well, I think
Throw it in my
those
email.
pictures would
Like
kind
a
of go along with
repository
this
for it?
Sure.
supplemental information.
Yeah.
Right.
What's becoming a pamphlet.
Yeah,
instead of a
well,
document.
in one day, in the near future, when I have time, I'd like to update the website. Keep working on the website. There's a bunch of stuff since we have a new website that you can do with it now. And so one of those things could be like a sites and facilities, almost like a, not. Historical Society obviously has a ton of things. So it wouldn't be trying to supplement that, but it would just be like, here's all of our sites. Here's some, current photos of the sites, historical photos of the sites, because that's something that we can direct people to as kind of a draw to the town as well.
A link to the preservation.
Certainly we'll have that, yeah, in any supplemental document, and maybe that supplemental document doesn't even need to be part of the, it doesn't have to be formally approved, it's just something we
No,
keep,
it's
but it's
just something-
available.
That we put together because the effort has clearly been put in.
Right.
To get the information.
So what does the city council have, they have to approve the plan,
Yes,
okay?
but we have to finish it first. You see, this is the cover page from the original, and at the bottom, approved, and there was a date supposed to go on that one.
And from here, is staff going to make the changes discussed and more standardizing?
I think we're gonna talk about. I'm hesitant to dump more stuff on you.
Well, I'm happy to do it.
Where are you on, have you started on the comp plan?
No.
I just keep thinking that's such a huge undertaking.
It's the sort of thing that's like such a big thing that it's hard to get it moving, but I'm sure once it's moving, it goes, it's like a boulder. Once you have it moving downhill, it's gonna
They
just
don't always
go
go
quick.
quick.
They don't,
They run into other rocks along.
sure, but yeah, it thus far has not really moved, other than some internal auditing, I guess, of the current comp plan to see. Do we need a full rewrite of comp plan, or are we just updating the comp plan? That's what. But
I appreciate the fact, and I certainly believe you that you want to do that. But I have to say, and this is my opinion, I'm not presuming to speak on behalf of anyone. I'm not one to have somebody else do the work. I think this committee has done this work thus far. And we put together what we've agreed with some minor changes, additions or deletions. Some good effective wording. And it just doesn't sit well with me to dump that work then on somebody else. And I know your staff and you're our support staff person. And this,
Are you okay putting it all together?
I put the other one together.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that I have any sort of expertise, but you all are, you have a full staff here. So that there's that. It just doesn't feel right to me. And I would not presume to do it and say, here it is, present it to council with no input and no comment.
Although it would make sense for one person to edit the document and then the whole committee review the document.
Absolutely, that's what I was just getting at. Yes, I would not presume to bypass that, what could be a final edit before it goes to council.
Well, if you're willing to put it together, I think that is the way to do it.
Well, I don't want Dawn to feel as if we don't want his help because I value it.
however you decide.
But I certainly have a feel for how much else he has on his plate. And regardless of how fast that boulder rolls downhill, once you get really rolling on the comp plan, your plate is gonna be full, never mind if some other development comes to town, or an annexation or something like that. It takes more of your work. I have the time, and frankly, I sit at home. Some days a bit more, not every day, but some days. So, I guess I would appreciate the opportunity to do it, which then we did not talk about the wins of it, because I talked about the spreadsheet. And we won't meet again for 3 months.
Well, I will say, we can meet more frequently if
Yes,
you all would like to.
if you want to.
We could schedule it, if we want to get this done more quickly, we could schedule one for next month if that works for time frame and everything, things like that.
It certainly could, or and that's a good idea, but I don't know. 9 AM, not outside at this time of day, it's not chilly. I'm just being a wuss, I admit it.
I mean, you could send it out electronically.
That's what I was
too, and
gonna
we
say,
can all look at it.
specifically, the spreadsheet with but in any event, regardless of who does it, that is something that can be done quickly, and then by email consensus, we could agree to either have another meeting if it's something that requires
Discussion.
a lot of discussion, or it's just a couple things, as long as you remember to reply all on your emails so that everybody sees everybody's comment. We could get around.
Well, quick meeting would seem easiest. I mean, not in lieu of, but
Well,
Yeah,
it might
to wrap
not-
it up.
But it might not be necessary. I mean, just on the time frame is what I'm talking about. When the whole thing is done, then I can't see it taking 3 months to do it. We can have a meeting in a month, in 6 weeks.
Maybe when you have your draft
Yeah.
number, you know that you're close to it to notify staff. And then if a meeting necessary, that can be scheduled.
Well,
at that time.
meeting will be necessary when it's done. If there are too many things I'm unsure of. And I saw these two taking a lot of notes while we were talking. If you would some of those, that would be most helpful. Because I did bring a pen. I think we can, at a minimum, finish this up in 3 months by the time we have our next meeting, and I think it can be done a lot sooner. Without overly straining static. Agreed.
Well, and if everyone's ready ahead of 3 months, we can easily schedule a special meeting, and it wouldn't have to be at 9 AM. It could be at,
Well,
2 PM.
we
or
have to
whatever.
consider Truba's work schedule, but yes.
Right.
If no one has a problem with that, then I think, that might be a more efficient one. And I would enjoy doing it. Be very selfish about it, but.
So it'll be helpful for you if I send you the draft minutes. That would be helpful.
Okay. Even a rough draft, don't worry about it. Just because I'm thinking, oh, I'm gonna use my computer, didn't bring a pencil, didn't bring in. And once we have this plan finished, submitted to council and adopted. With the adoption of the last one, there were a few comments, but no changes. No one got all overly excited about it. Then I'm not sure. This is our big job. I'm not sure how much, I never know what will come up. But we'll have to see where we go from there. We might have the summer off.
Might have what?
The summer off.
That'll be good.
Because we're doing this through the winter, so.
Yeah, I hate to see it go 3 months, so before we can even then revisit it and approval. I mean, we're halfway through, well, we're not halfway, but anything we wanted done for this year. So anything we can do to help this, move this along.
What I said was, at worst, I think we can have this done. I know we can have this done in 3 months. We might have it done in 6 weeks. I'm certainly not gonna go home and set it aside and forget about it.
Well, if you need assistance, you just,
I
any,
know where to find you. Does anyone else have anything?
I think that's a good plan. If you're willing to do it, we can all review it and it'll be done.
Okay. Well,
Carry on. I gotta get something.
are we done? Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, no, I was just looking.
Did you want to set up an April meeting anyway, or?
I had sent out, or I had just kind of, based on the last meeting, we had set kind of a quarterly day as,
The second Monday.
right, and so it would be Monday, the 14th. At 9 a.m.
Of what?
April,
April.
for the next regularly scheduled quarterly meeting.
Just while we're all together
Unless we
to
get,
get it scheduled.
unless we get done early and we can meet.
Well, right, the ordinance says, does it say we have to meet quarterly? I don't remember.
I thought it said quarterly.
Or does it say at least quarterly? Or-
I have,
Go ahead, hold up.
boards shall meet at least once per calendar quarter. All meetings of the board shall be open to public. Board shall cause a record.
Okay, thank you, once per quarter. So
At least,
if
yep.
we have a meeting in the middle of a calendar quarter, that takes care of it. That buys us that whole time.
Right,
Mhm.
yeah, so it's not like any sort of set date, we had just kind of
But we-
informally.
We sort of agreed on the second Monday.
Or sooner. You're saying April 14th or sooner, right?
And hopefully,
Yeah, okay.
That sounds good to me.
but we will have,
Pretty sure I won't be here then, but I could Zoom, I guess,
Yep. we
if,
have it,
if
so.
that still stands.
If that's the date for right now, I'd suggest we go ahead and send out a calendar invite just to get on everybody's calendars, can always be changed. I find that helpful to get it on the books.
it's on my calendar. My calendar's on my phone. I don't use that calendar app.
So, Dylan, would you mind sending that out? That calendar invite?
Yeah, I'm just gonna send out the whole series, cause I just scheduled it quarterly,
Sweet.
for till 2030, so.
Wow, that's a planner in the true sense. Thank you.
That's an optimist, and perhaps a cockeyed one. That remains to be seen. Well, anyone else have anything they want to know? And assuming that clock is right, it's 10:30 and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everybody. Your staff.
Great day.
Yes.
Do you have a meeting tonight?
No,
No.
not, it would normally be Tuesday, but
Tuesday.
not this week.
That's a beautiful coat.
Thank you.